You cannot take your credit history with you across the world. Why can't we facilitate something where if I need a credit card from a bank in the US, can I connect that bank to this bank and make this happen?
But it's not something that most people understand as to what goes on behind the scene.
When do you recall the last time you and I went for a branch? We don't have to go to a branch for anything now. Today, India is the number one country in digital payments in the world. How can we move from a cash-driven economy to as much as possible a cashless economy?
My competition is very high. Together we can really solve for a lot of bigger challenges.
I realized that, okay, if I put my mind to something and if I were to really go with it with my heart, I can make anything happen.
A lot of people take advantage of those narratives.
If you believe in something and the universe will support you in terms of people, situations, context.
What is meditation's role in your life, in your journey?
On a day-to-day basis, I think it helps restore balance. One learns to respond than react.
What's the innovation that you're seeing that's happening now in the current role as well?
5 years back, the question was really why cloud? Now the question is how, and what apps are there on a person's phone tells a lot about the person's credit behavior.
Credit card numbers are declining. Are we going to see this kind of an impact globally as well?
This episode is brought to you by Super Checkout, the world's first AI-powered checkout that lets you split, combine, or co-pay with friends and family in real time. Whether it's shopping, gifting, or travel bookings, now everyone can chip in with ease. Check out smarter with Super Checkout. The Hustle Group Company. Let me introduce you to the Hustle Group Company. It's a lifestyle brand that's redefining streetwear through the power of fashion, self-belief, and resilience. The second one being Discover Dollar, which is an AI-driven tech company that helps brands and retailers recover hidden dollars from overpayments and leakages. DocsNow's intelligent platform empowers businesses of all sizes to rapidly collect, manage, govern, and collaborate on the data front, transforming your documents and making sure there's an impact on the business bottom line, all in a secure and a single environment.
Hello everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the Innovators and Disruptors podcast. I'm your host Abhay Tandon, and I'm glad to have you back here for a very interesting episode. This episode is going to experience or help you experience the realm of financial services, of payments, and the whole world of fintech, and how innovation in this space has brought in so much of frictionless life changes in the way we operate today. And for that, we have an amazing guest with us. This person that we have on this episode today is a fintech innovator. He's done so much in his life around the whole financial services, BFSI, payments, cross-border, and so many other areas within the whole fintech space. And he's created so much of impact. And I'm so happy to have Mr. Vijay Rajagopal here today with us. Vijay, he's also a dear friend. He's a mentor. He's someone I've looked up to for a while now. And I'm glad that I've been able to get you here. And Vijay, by the way, also heads the GTM for BFSI Financial Services and FinTech at AWS. So thank you so much, Vijay, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Abhay. It's such a pleasure to be here. I think it's I've seen the way your podcast, The Innovators and Disruptors, has shaped up. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and look forward to exchanging thoughts over the course of the next time that we have together.
Thank you so much. I'm superbly excited, prima facie, because I think I've seen a lot of things that we do today. For example, making payments, etc., via UPI or other platforms as well, right? That has made. I mean, my life has become so easy, and I see it happening with millions and billions of people around us, right? But it's not something that most people understand as to what goes on behind the scenes, right? There's so much of innovation that has happened. There was a time about 20 years ago, 2 decades ago, we used to say that BFSI is a very difficult segment to crack through because there's so many regulations. They still have there a lot of regulations, but the innovation is not possible in BFSI segment, right? In banks at large as well. And today, there's so much of ease of transaction. Things have become so frictionless for us consumers. So I wanted to first talk to you about this before we go into any other specifics. If you can just give us a perspective of the impact at scale, what does that look like, right? Because there's so many different technologies, so many different areas. Can you provide a high-level perspective on this?
Absolutely, Abhay. And I think, like you said rightly, banking, financial services, insurance, I think those have been the spaces where historically, I mean, if you look at our past generations and so on, even our parents, and for that matter, we're so used to going to the branch, right? Like, when do you recall the last time you and I went for a branch? We don't have to go to a branch for anything now. I mean, and that's a simple way to look at how things have changed, right? Like, so the amount that technology has done over the last decade or so to transform how we fundamentally look at banking, savings, investment, credit. I think it's radically transformed a lot of things, right? Like, to the extent that, if today India is a digital superpower in payments, today India is the number one country in digital payments in the world. Just on UPI, we process around 25 billion transactions a month.
Oh, wow.
Right. And that's a scale that we have achieved, which is more than 10 times what credit cards has achieved over more than 2 decades, right? Like, that's the scale that UPI has done, just as an example. And today it powers millions of small businesses, in a almost zero cost, frictionless, seamless payments transfer, right? And that's incredible, right? And that's happened because so many things have converged together, right? So we have had a convergence of, the mobile infrastructure. People have been able to use their smartphones. People have become very comfortable with internet transactions.
Right.
You've also had a lot of inclusion, right? Like, a lot of micro, small enterprises have embraced this, right? And of course, there have been things which have helped accelerate this change. So, for example, COVID drove a lot of adoption towards digitization. The government's push has been tremendous, right? To say that, how can we move from a cash-driven economy to, as much as possible, a cashless economy? Right. And that has really, accelerated a lot of things. Incredible infrastructure around the Aadhaar payment stack, the identity things that we have evolved, how, one is able to do KYC seamlessly. I think all of those things have come together, right? And then today we are kind of reaping the benefits of multiple ecosystems coming together to make this happen, right? Like, that's a sum and substance. But today, if India is looked upon as a digital superpower by governments across the world, by reserve banks across the world, every country has an aspiration. Hey, how can I implement a UPI-like system in my country? If you have reached that place, it's certainly a matter of pride.
Amazing. I'm so happy to hear that, Reena. The scale was just enormous. The moment you said 25 billion transactions in a month, and that is 10 times more than the overall credit card transactions of the last 2 years put together. That just gives you the perspective on scale that has been brought in, right? And so many other aspects that you mentioned about all these areas and stakeholders coming together, the infrastructure coming together to kind of create this kind of impact. It's beautiful. And India becoming the number one country in the world to be, at the top of this cutting edge tech is so fantastic. And, I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you so much. Now, Vijay, before we go further into this, delve into this, I have a lot of questions around this space as well.
Sure.
But I want to take a step back and I want to cover the basics. So Vijay, to get into the basics, my first thing that I wanted to check with you is I want to understand who you are today. Of course, a lot of people know you as a leader that you are today, but I wanted to understand how did you become that, right? So, you have a very multifaceted career yourself, right? Multidimensional career, right?
Yeah.
You did your engineering and Betsbala, you've been in fact a topper there. That you did your MBA as well from IIM Ahmedabad, and then you've been into product strategy and now financial services leadership roles as well over the years, right? Any key formative experience across your early years that you can point to and say that, this was a very transformational point in my journey?
Yeah, no, sure, Abhay. I think in one way I would say I'm fortunate to have been blessed with having taken multiple dimensions, through my career, having had the opportunity to do that, having made those choices and going through those choices and being reasonably successful, thanks to a lot of help and support from various people and mentors, colleagues, so many people, who have kind of made this happen for me. And I think that has happened, I would say, if you were to kind of reflect on it, and like you rightly said, right, like what I'm saying is, if I look at it, if I look back at my career, so when I started on early, it was into consulting.
Right.
Then I moved to investment banking, and from there to investing. And then at that juncture, I said, okay, can I look at something which is where I deep dive and run a business, right? Like, which is when I went and took the startup route. And after running a couple of successful ventures, then looked at scaled up enterprises, like PayPal, and that's what I'm running now as Amazon at Amazon Payments. I was heading the payments business there, and I lead the go-to-market here for AWS. So I've been fortunate to have done these multiple roles. And if I were to look back, I think one thing I think really made a difference, and I would say. After my engineering, right, when I decided that I want to pursue my MBA, and there was this deep desire to pursue it from what was and still recognized as among the best schools in the world. So there was a deep desire that if I have to pursue my MBA, and I have to get into IIM Ahmedabad. It was something. It was very close to my heart, and.
Right.
And I think the admit rates even today are around 0.1% or lesser in terms of number of people who take the exam and who make it.
Right.
But that milestone of and it involved a lot of dedication, focus, discipline, which until then, I was also evolving as an individual, and just kind of sailing through that and making that happen was a pivotal moment in my life, right? Because I realized that, if I put my mind to something and if I were to really go with it with my heart, I can make anything happen. I think that quiet confidence that instilled right then, right, even before I started my career, I think that really helped at multiple stages of my life, because I realized that at different points of time, if I'm making a different choice, more evolved choice, a choice which even seems challenging, I just need to believe in me that whatever challenges could come up, I will have the ability to kind of get through, right? Get through with myself, get through with the support of others, believe that things will work out. I think that's what that instilled.
That is
So I think that was, if I were to look back, as Steve Jobs says, right, like you can only join dots while looking back. Like you have to believe that the dots will connect somehow. And to me, when you mentioned this formative experience, I think that was really a pivotal moment. When I got through that B school, and those 2 years, were among the best years of my life at IMA. I think just the sheer the effort, the willpower that kind of instilled in me, and more importantly the belief, I think that is what has helped me through over these years, continues to help me, I would say.
Brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I can partially relate to that as well. Because there have been pivotal moments in everyone's life, right? And I think that confidence that you get sometimes, and sometimes exposure. In my case, it was the case of exposure, right? When I came and joined SPJAN, I didn't score a 99.9 percentile, so I couldn't get into IIM Ahmedabad, but I scored a 98.5 or 98.7 percentile. I got into SPJAN, Mumbai. It's amongst the 10 top 10 B schools in India as well.
Yes.
So at SPJ, for me, it was about the exposure that I suddenly got, right? Because prior to that, I felt that, even in my engineering, I was one of the toppers, and, I was getting awards at a national level. So the exposure was limited to R&D in the engineering space, and that was good. But it's only in the business school that I realized that, wow, I mean, my competition is very high.
Yes.
But they're also my friends.
Yes.
They're my allies in many ways, and together we can really solve for a lot of bigger challenges, right? So thank you for sharing that. I'm assuming in your B school you took finance as your majors, right?
One of my majors, yes, was finance. Other was strategy.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Very cool. Right.
Yes.
So that transitioned you to consulting initially. A lot of strategy consulting as well, and then you got into the investment side with ICICI, Avishkar, and People Capital as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey as well? What was the whole investment journey like? I know of you, personally speaking, as an investor in a lot of startups, right? But that's a very different side.
Correct.
This formative years after B school, getting into strategy consulting and then into investments and capital. How did that happen? What was that journey like?
So I think when I first got into consulting, it was more. So there used to be this joke in B school that if you're not sure what to get into, just get into consulting. Don't think too much. So because it just gives you that more time to kind of figure out what you want to do. So I ended up getting into consulting, spent more than a couple of years there. And then I realized, because I had taken finance and there was something which had drawn that to me on campus, I thought, why don't I give it a shot? So then I went into spent some time in investment banking. Then I thought, why don't I try actually investing rather than trying to just make transactions happen?
Right.
So even each of these, you see the evolution as well, right? Like, so you get into something and then you realize, okay, hey, can I do this as well? And then the belief that, okay, fine, yeah, why not? Right? Okay, let me do it. So that's what brought into investing, and I spent a good amount of time in investing, and I loved it. Right? Like, so spent almost 6 years between a venture capital and private equity investing. Had the opportunity to be a director on 5 boards. Amazing experience, right? Like, so I think at that early years in my career, what I got to see being part of a board, working very closely with CXOs, being able to influence decisions, core business decisions, and so on, were amazing, right? And this was across a slew of businesses,
Right.
tech-enabled, consumer, industrial, all of that, right? So phenomenal experience, and I love that, right? Because I could actually see what things go into making businesses scale.
Right.
Right, and that I realized that, oh, I like this, right? Like, I like how you drive growth. I like how you bring people together to drive growth. I like how you rally people around a certain vision, right? And which is what I saw our the founders and CXOs whom we were backing were doing. Right? They were essentially rallying people to then in turn drive businesses, and I just loved that. You know, so that's kind of what. So that was one very interesting part of my journey, right? And like you said, while I transitioned from that to the operating side, and I did that also consciously, because I said, in some ways, if you're in a car, when you're an investor, you are in the passenger seat, right? But when you are in a business, you are actually the driver, right? So if you were to think about it, I thought, okay, maybe it's time for me to move from the passenger seat to the driver's seat, right? That's when I was one of the founding leaders at Zeta, and that's how that journey started. My fintech operating journey as a business leader, that's when that started. But these kind of what led to it, right? Because I loved just being part of driving such growth, and I thought, okay, let me do it directly. So that's kind of how it evolved.
That's fantastic, right? Because a lot of those investment experiences, and then you got into the operator role. As a business leader, you went from Zeta to PayPal to Zolve, and been in Amazon and AWS now for a few years too, right? And you've been able to transform so many different areas under financial services, under BFSI, over the years. Fantastic. But today, with all these things, all these roles that you've played, how do you recognize yourself? How do you, what do you think about yourself? Are you a builder? Are you an investor? Are you an operator? Are you a business leader? How do you describe yourself?
Got it. I think a combination, but what has really been the crux of it is today I see myself as a very strong business leader who drives growth. Right. And again, I think I've been blessed to have been part of 0 to 1 environments, 1 to 10 environments, and 10 to 100 environments. Right. Like, so at Zeta and Zolve, I did 0 to 1. At Amazon Payments, I did 1 to 10. And at AWS right now, I'm doing 10 to 100. So I've been blessed to kind of have seen different faces, right, in some ways. And I think that's how I see myself, as a business leader who is able to drive growth, bring people together, connect different ecosystems, and really help businesses scale. That's how I see myself.
Right. Yeah. Fair. I think that also stems from a fact that I'm aware that you've been meditating for more than a decade now, right?
Yes.
What is that? What is meditation? What is meditation's role in your life, in your journey? Can you talk to us a little bit about that as well?
Absolutely, Abhay. I think it has been fairly profound, right? And the reason I say that is, like you just mentioned, while I've been practicing it for more than 10 years, I've also had the opportunity to teach guided meditation to groups of people over a period of time. And I found that it has helped them as well. Right? It has really helped them. I think fundamentally, it helps restore balance. On a day-to-day basis, I think it helps restore balance. One learns to respond than react. Right? I think, it brings that element of being able to look at things, stay sufficiently detached, and then respond, right? Which has really helped me, keep that balance. So, because so many things happen, across our personal lives, professional lives, with so many situations, so many people, etc. It just really helped me stay centered, stay humble, stay balanced. And I think that and it is just, and I keep telling to people, who ask me, it's just 15 minutes in a day. Everybody can do it. Everybody can do it. Right? It's just a matter of putting it on priority. right? And once you start doing it, you'll realize how much difference it makes, right? And you'll realize the level of calmness, the level of focus that you'll be able to bring to situations, especially in this world of 30-second reels, right? Like, and so much things capturing our attention. It's important to get back to what things can help us build our focus back. And I think meditation is the best tool, I believe, that which is there out there. It helps in so many different ways, right? And again, there are so many experts out there. I'm not an expert, I'm a practitioner, but I've really found the benefits of that, and that's really what I wanted to share.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud, out of curiosity,
Yes.
any particular form of meditation that you practice?
It is very simple. It's something that I have evolved, and that's also something which I want to share. It is n equal to 1. There are all kinds of techniques out there. One needs to find what works for oneself, right? Like, so you have to find something which resonates with you.
Brilliant.
That's when you will stick to it, right? Like, so it is about just experimenting a little bit, finding out, hey, is this okay for me? Is this not okay for me? Is this working for me? Not working for me? And then sticking to it. So mine is very simple. Focus on breathing over a period of time. I think it relaxes the body and the mind. And then when thoughts move aside, which it naturally will, just bringing it back gently, back to the breathing, and that's it. And that automatically puts you in a deeper state, what we call as the alpha state of the brain, scientifically speaking, and that's good. Yes.
Fantastic. So amazing to hear that. I think I've seen that in the family too. I've not been myself into deep meditation. I've had periods in life where I've done that, and I've seen the benefits too. But I think I should get back into the discipline. So thank you so much for inspiring me as well on this.
Yeah.
Vijay, the reason I asked you about meditation was also prima facie because of your humility and how you've been able to talk about, stitching together that balance and, doing a bunch of very different things and creating value out of each of them. But since we speak about innovation as well, again, there's been a lot of innovation in the journey that you've taken, right? In PayPal, you even ran strategy and innovation, incubation, worked with a lot of startups there, and you've been continuously doing that over the years, right?
Yeah.
Be it neo-banking, be it, a lot of other newer technologies right out there today, cross-border payments as well, lending as well. Which area among these was the most soul satisfying for you in terms of the impact that you've been able to create and why?
Got it. Yeah. So there was one when I started this venture called Zolve, along with a partner. So there was one problem statement which is very interesting, right? And I found that when I tell you, it'll seem so apparent that, hey, like, how can this problem still exist? But it existed and still exists in different forms, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Today, let's say you travel across the world, right? Like, you have your identity, and let's say it's a passport. That passport works everywhere, right? Like, with the passport, you can move across the world. Interestingly, that's not true with your credit history. You cannot take your credit history with you across the world, right? Like, so if you go to a different country, you have to build it from scratch, right? Like, because people do not know who Abhay or Vijay is, and so you will have to start from scratch, and that has multiple implications, right? If you are starting a credit history from scratch, then your access to credit, cards, that helping you in terms of multiple day-to-day means, including renting a house, taking insurance, etc., gets impacted, right? And this is a real problem.
True.
Generations of students who have gone, let's say, from India to the US have faced this problem. Right? So they land there, they have to start afresh, and they need a card, they can't get a card, etc. Right? So we found this problem and thought, okay, what's the best way to solve this? Right? Like, if we truly believe that it's one world, it has to be one world in every sense, right? Like, So and like you would have, when I said this, you would have thought, right? Oh yeah, of course, right? Like, why should people have to kind of keep building it every time?
No, I had to face the same problem when I went to France.
Yes.
And I had to create a new bank account in BNP Paribas. So that became a big challenge for me to do that.
Correct.
And then you start building that history out there, right? In a new country. So completely agree and understand your point of view on this.
Correct, right? So then we said, okay, so then we thought, okay, now if this is an individual problem, so let's say how corporates solved it, right? Like, so corporates also have gone abroad to expand their business. They also need lending lines.
Right.
They also need credit. How have they solved it? Right? And then we saw that, okay, over a period of time in the banking system, something called a bank guarantee had emerged, right? So you have this letter of credit bank guarantee format where, let's say, if a corporate in India is setting up an arm in the US or any other country for that matter, the banker, which the corporate banks in India talks to a local bank there, and the banks have a system of issuing bank guarantees to each other. So this corporate has access to local funds, let's say dollar funds, and the bank there is willing to lend on the back of the guarantee that this bank gave, right? So we thought, okay, why not replicate that at an individual level?
Right.
Like, so I also bank with the banker here, and the banker knows my history,
Right.
like all my deposits, all of that out there with the bank. Possibly the bank has lent to me a few times, and also knows that my credit history is good. They know my scores,
Right.
my CIBIL scores and so on, right? So why can't we facilitate something where if I need a credit card from a bank in the US, can I connect that bank to this bank and make this happen, right?
True.
This was the underlying thesis, and I would say that over a period of time we made it happen. Right?
Brilliant.
So today, when students they land in the US, the moment they get their admit, they get a card here. It's an unsecured card, right? They get an instant savings bank account which they can load money into. They get a card, they land there, and they can start using the card the moment they land, right? Like, so we solved this, and it was very satisfying.
That's a
Because
huge
it took
problem.
a lot of work to, again, in terms of bringing banks together and having financial institutions talk to each other,
Right,
the
exactly.
amount of steps, protocols, processes it takes, but we made it happen.
Huge amount of regulations as well, because there's so
Yes.
many different countries. And they have
Exactly. So, which is why we first did it for the India-US corridor, because every country has its own regulations. You're bang on, right? Like, so
Right.
you cannot do a cookie cutter,
regulations.
right? So you cannot say, okay, I'll solve X to Y country, so I can replicate. No, you have to solve it for every single corridor.
Exactly.
So,
That's
but
fantastic.
that innovation was very satisfying.
Can you give us a number of how many students does it impact globally?
Yeah, so I think today, if you were to look at it, every year, right, almost give or take 3 to 5 lakh students avail of this, right? And this is just the number of students who avail of this. And you can think about it. This is 3 to 5 lakh students who have earlier would have had zero access to credit,
Right.
right? So if you put a dollar value to it, it'll run to millions of dollars that every year now that they'll be able to spend,
Right.
take, borrow, buy houses, all of that,
Exactly.
right? Like, so it would runs into, say, tens of millions of dollars that every year now that you are making this happen. And this is just with one corridor. The moment you
Right.
replicate with another corridor, it doubles and so on. So
Exactly. There's a huge number there. In
Yeah.
fact, for me, this impact is so beautiful because of the fact that it targets the student segment,
Yes.
right? As a person who's been a professional for a while, if I have to go to a new country, I'm not too afraid, right? Because
Correct.
one, I have my India credit card,
Exactly.
I can swipe it. I know I have cash reserves that I can,
Absolutely.
if there's a issue, can always tap into that. The students
yeah,
always have a problem about having cash reserves.
yes,
Right, so they face a lot more difficulty in those periods.
Yeah.
And I think solving for that is a fantastic innovation. It's a fantastic impact story as well.
Thanks.
Thank you so much
Sure.
for sharing that as well.
Yeah.
Talking about impact stories and innovation.
Yeah.
There is a lot of work that you've done with startups as well.
Yes.
With various corporates as well, right?
Yeah.
Enterprises.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of a perspective about how that has shaped up your thinking? How has that solved for some of the problems as well?
Yeah. No, I can definitely talk about, when I joined Amazon Payments, right? I took over the merchants business. It was a fairly small business. So that was this 1 to 10 journey that I spoke about. And I found that, while, we were impacting the small, medium enterprises and so on, but from the value that we could offer to our customers, we could do a lot more, right? And the way I thought was, okay, if our customers, a large portion of the customers are transacting, say, medium to large enterprises, right? Let's say they're visiting a DMart more than a Kirana shop, right? Like, so how do we make things workable so that the customer finds value? So let's say, the customer walks into a DMart or even a local chain, a store, right? So where does he find value, and how is it valuable for the merchant, right, to kind of get more business, right? So I think fundamentally 2 things had to be solved. So the customer, and because we were in a unique position as Amazon Payments, because while everybody else offered a UPI, which is brilliant, we offered our customers more in terms of payment methods. You would know of this Amazon Pay Balance, which is our wallet, which
Right.
I think we were among the first to put out that wallet in the system. in the Indian system. So wallet is a product that we offered. Gift cards is something that we offered. We had a co-brand credit card that we offered to our customers. So we thought, how do you ensure that customers have the choice to use any of these instruments anywhere? Right. So so how do you kind of make that happen? So there is customer value, and from a merchant standpoint, if you were to look at it, what does a merchant care about? Right? Merchant wants new customers.
Right.
He wants customers to keep coming back, and then when customers come back, he wants them to transact more. These are the three basic things that any merchant, any enterprise wants.
Totally.
So how do we solve for that, right? And which is when I said we need to go deeper into this mid to large enterprise segment. That's a segment that we had not really gotten into by then. So let's go deep into that segment. Let's make sure that we put out products which merchants would love, customers would love. All right. And when you create a win-win like that, then the business will automatically grow, right? So, and I think that's something that, again, thanks to Amazon, I've learned in terms of being customer obsessed.
Right.
And so if you really put the customer first and put together something that they value, the business will take care of itself, right? So it's not about putting the business first, putting the product first, and then figuring out which customer to give it to. It's about really understanding the customer, what they want. Different sets of customers. Here, the customer was the end customer. The merchant was also a customer, right? So understanding what they want and then bringing it happen. Then magic really plays itself out. So once I arrived at that, then I said, okay, what was also happening, if you see, we had these QRs across the country, right? Which were these sticker QRs, which every Kirana shop had. But these mid to enterprise merchants wanted something more. Right? They wanted something where, if you've seen those POS devices, they wanted something where you could generate a QR on the machine. Right? So, and also because they said, hey, I have highly large systems. I want every transaction to be reconciled. Right, where every transaction, the invoice has to match the payment transaction. So give me those kind of capabilities, right? Which is when we said, okay, there is something called this dynamic QR. How can you make a dynamic QR happen in a POS machine? Banks had done that. In parts, banks had done that, but we said, as a payment player, how do you make that happen?
Right.
And that is something that we uniquely brought to the market, saying that we want to invest and grow this. Right, because this is something that plays to all these things. It matches customer requirements. It will help our merchants get more business, and I'll cover that part soon. Right. So let's bring this out. Right. So how do we bring a dynamic QR into these devices? And for that, I did a bunch of things. First, brought product and tech teams together to build it, and we invested and made that happen. Secondly, got the distribution right by striking a large partnership with Pine Labs, right, which was the largest offline player. So it's about playing to strengths. Right. At Amazon, we had our customer strengths. Pine Labs had their merchant strengths, who kind of brought it together. And very importantly, right, so like I told you, what does a merchant care about? He cares about business. So we said, we have Amazon as a platform. Now, do you want to come out and put coupons for our customers? Please. Right. So if you want, if you have a nearby store and, and geo-targeting is possible.
Yep.
So let's say, Abhay frequents XYZ cafe. Let's say it's Blue Tokai. Right? You want to put out a coupon to Abhay where when he opens his Amazon app, he collects the coupon, and when he walks into the store, he automatically redeems it.
Yeah.
Let's make that experience.
Yeah.
And customers loved it.
Of course.
Right? And the merchants loved it because it meant that, okay, more customers are coming in, right? And customers are getting rewarded, merchants are getting more business, and that's how I got that flywheel going.
Amazing.
Right? So, had a great team, put together a lot of a very satisfying journey. I think, over a period of 4 years, put together teams which kind of joined me in this vision and helped make it happen, right? Grew the business almost 85 times since the time it started. So very, very satisfying journey over a period of time. And like I said, right, you feel content when you're able to drive value. And it echoed back to my thing of, I genuinely like driving scale. Right, so if you drive scale and growth, and when things come together, it's very, very satisfying.
Sure.
Right, so so that was one, a slightly longish answer to an innovation which happened, but it's very close to my heart. So I spent
this is
time
fantastic.
on it.
This is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many points that you touched upon. One is about the whole 1 to 10 journey and how that impact when you scale up. Sorry. The whole 1 to 10 journey, how that impact and scale up really gives so much of soul satisfaction, right? Because you have really solved for fundamental problems for both types of customers, be it the merchants or the end consumers, right? Your shoppers, right? And in each case, there's been a lot of personalization that has come in.
Yes.
There's a added revenue stream that has come in. So it's a win-win for all the parties, and that I think that's what makes the whole the whole experiment and the scale up more holistic, more wholesome in nature. That it's a win for everyone.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. Right? I don't think so. The long answer. I'm sure that you can speak about it for 2 hours straight.
Yes.
But thank you for sharing this perspective. But now you spoke about the 1 to 10 journey and the scale up. Right now, your current role involves already a scale up environment, right? And you have to scale it up further.
Yes.
Right. You're heading GTM for financial services, BFSI, and fintech.
Correct.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about what's the innovation that's happening here? Because the world is changing very, very fast. Right?
True.
About 5 years back, we were just talking about bringing everything to cloud.
Yes.
Today, with AI being so dynamic in nature, so volatile in nature, a lot of things are changing with that as well.
Yeah.
What's the innovation that you're seeing that's happening now in the current role as well?
Absolutely. I think, like you rightly said, 5 years back, the question was really why cloud. Now the question is how.
Right.
I want to go to cloud. Tell me how. That's the answer that we are seeing from customers across the board, across sectors, right? Because I think there has been a realization that if businesses have to scale rapidly, grow with agility, grow with their right level of security and so on, the movement to cloud really accelerates that journey. I think there has been a profound realization thanks to numerous case studies of successes that have happened. Right, so people have realized that, saying that the older ways of sticking to, say, monolithic technologies or things that used to work in the past, we need to change, and I think people have adopted to that change, and that has happened.
Right.
I think while that has happened, I think some of the things that are definitely important are one is the customer benefits that it drives. Right, like, so if I want to embrace any new technology, being on the cloud helps me be more nimble. Right, so today, if I have to adopt generative AI, right, or if I have to adopt the latest analytics tools, right, or if I have to drive machine learning in my company, right, all for the right business outcomes, then being on the clouds almost become a must-have. Right, else it just slows me down significantly. Right, that's a realization that people have come to, and that's something that that I have seen. So. And again, since generative AI is really changing and impacting so much over the last, I would say, 3 years or so, people are willing to experiment more, right? So you hear a lot more POCs that people are willing to now. Right? People understand that there is a failure rate associated with it, but it's important to invest in it right now, right? So that I'm able to reap the benefits. And the areas in which it's impacting, again, are manifold.
Right.
You see it playing itself out in customer service. You see it playing itself out in fraud detection. Right. And I'm talking fraud detection specifically in the financial services context, but customer services across areas. Right. So you see, whether it is airlines, hospitality, retail, financial services, customer service, and automating that. A huge role that AI and generative AI are playing, right? Marketing content. I mean, the kind of new content, creative content that generative AI is able to bring together, it's amazing, right? The kind of experiences, the hyper-personalized experiences that you can give to customers are truly revolutionary, right?
Very true.
And apart from really elevating the employee experience, right? Like, because now, let's say if you're a developer, you have tools to write code for you.
Right.
So you can save the time to do more value-added stuff. Right. Like, so you can, invest the time to do stuff which actually needs the right level of a higher level of human intelligence, and, leave some of the basic stuff to these models which can help you do that. Right. So there it's impacting. Then it's impacting, employee engagement, onboarding, all of the stuff. Right. Like, so today, when you're onboarding, you don't really need a person to help you with your journey. Right. You can go to tools. Those tools can embed themselves into the company databases. They can fetch you the right amount of information, give you options, all of that. Right. So a lot of things are improving, and we are seeing that in financial services. So, for example, we are seeing large companies willing to adopt voice bots for collections.
Yep.
Right. So let's say you have given out a bunch of credit cards. You've given out a bunch of loans. Right? You need to call the customer, and end of the day, you can break it down to a few options that the customer would have.
Right.
And that is evolved so much. We are seeing more and more companies embracing the use of voice bots for calling, collections, facilitating the journey, multilingual capability.
Very true.
I think some of the stuff is fairly transformational. That's happening. And people say, right? Sometimes for fun, people say, okay, I'm going to give you a call. You have to tell me whether it is a real person or a bot.
Very true. Very true.
And I must say, sometimes you can't make out, right? You can't really make out, but so that's the pace at which some of these innovations are happening with cloud as the base infrastructure, right? So, and I think the way, at least at AWS, we tell our customers that we help you build some of these stuff, right? We help you, let's say, if you decided that you want to get onto this, let's say, generative AI stream, we have something called SageMaker, which lets you start like this. Right, you can just get onto it. We have everything built in for you to build on top of it. So you worry about your business outcomes, KPIs, what problems you want to solve. We'll take care of the tech, and that's the synergy that we help make happen. That's my current role that I drive.
Brilliant. That's so amazing, right? And I think right at the edge of tech, right, of where we are seeing the curve, right, go.
Yeah.
That's so fantastic to be at in that environment and driving that change. It's fantastic. I think there's so many examples around. Seeing AI evolve today, that we could probably speak for another couple of hours just on this. To be honest, I'm very passionate about it.
Yes, I'm sure. I would love to exchange thoughts another time with you. Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Very, very interesting to also understand a little bit about voice tech agents, and one of the investments that I have made also is in a startup called Sarthi.ai. Which is doing something similar, right? Yes. Multilingual and contextualizing the conversation midway through itself. If someone as a debtor is not responding in a favorable way or an erratic way, then the tonality of the bot changes midway through the conversation, right? To kind of enforce those terms.
Yes.
Which is something that I had not seen happening about 3 years ago.
Correct.
So a lot of changes happening in that segment as well. And I do want to go back. If you remember right at the beginning, we spoke about the UPI transactions.
Yes.
Since we're talking about a lot about impact right now, right? I do want to touch upon UPI. It's a very fascinating area that has transformed the country right now. It's transforming people outside. You yourself mentioned 25 billion transactions a month.
Yes.
Right? Can you, for the ease for the audience or the consumers of the content, right? Can you help them by giving a bit of a perspective around what really happens behind every UPI transaction?
Correct.
Because we know that, as one person to another, if I have to transfer money, I have to make a transaction happen, I have to purchase or exchange goods or barter goods, whatever, right? The transaction can happen immediately. Now there's UPI Lite as well, right? But what really goes on behind the scenes, if you can give us a perspective, that would be super helpful.
True. Essentially, what's the science behind the magic, if I were to put it, right?
Exactly.
Because for end customers, it's like magic. Like I scan, click, and I'm done. Right?
Exactly.
So, but that's
so easy.
Absolutely. So sure, I'll break it down to a certain extent. So, if let's say if you one were a user, right? So think of it as one linking one's bank account to an ID. ID similar to an email ID, right? This is called a UPI ID. So that's the handle, as they call it. So it could be let's say your name at XYZ bank, etc., right? And so that's the first step which happens. So you've linked it. So, and again, two kinds of payments are possible, right? I can transfer to you as an individual, which is called P2P, person to person, or I can go to a merchant establishment and do a transaction to the shopkeeper, which is called a P2M, person to merchant.
Right.
Both are enabled. So P2P, again, it's, ultimately there is a pipe which NPCI has created, with so many participants having come together. And NPCI itself is an umbrella organization backed by some of the top banks in India today, and so on. So they've created this infrastructure pipeline. So where to say it? Think of it like a national corridor or like a national highway of sorts, in some ways. Right. And then you have so many of these state highways connecting to it. And then the state highways in turn branch out into city roads, etc. That's really how it works.
Right.
So there is a pipe, like how I said, you put out an ID as a customer. Similarly, the merchant also has an ID associated with it, right? The merchant IDs are issued again by the banks. There are some KYC norms, etc. associated, which have all been laid down. So subject to passing the KYC, the merchant also gets a handle. Essentially means that the bank account is linked to that identifier. So let's say now when a transaction actually happens, which means that, and transactions can happen in many ways. So like, you can directly send money with a phone number, which is what you do if you were to pay another person. At a merchant establishment as well, you can either scan a QR, you can again send money with the phone number. There are multiple ways, right? And in future, that will also evolve. It will get to more biometric modes, etc., etc. There will be multiple ways to pay. So when you do that, essentially what is happening, somewhere in the highway, 2 touch points are connected. Right? Like, so one ID here and another ID here is connected, and imagine like a line starting between them where the amount gets transferred digitally. At the back end, instantaneously, zero cost, right? Like, so that is the kind of pipeline that's got set up. So when this transaction happens, you see an instant payment happen. You've got debited. Let's say the merchant account has got credited, and that's it. That's what happens. Now, at the back end, what happens? The banks have to settle, and the banks in turn, there is a system by which they work with NPCI, and then they settle. It happens on a daily basis with each other, etc., etc. And then there are things. Let's say if a transaction failures happen, how it is addressed, there are a set of protocols on that, etc., etc. I can keep going, but this is the basics of how it really works. A lot of things come together to make this magic happen.
This is brilliant, right? Because like you said, right, this is the science behind the magic. Because at the end of the day, I know a lot of people that I know in my close vicinity do not know what happens behind the scenes, but this is so powerful for us today, right? In fact, it's so powerful today that multiple countries across the globe are now wanting to tap into this mechanism. Could you also shed some light on that as well?
Absolutely. So in some sense, I would say if you look at a Pix in Brazil, or if you look at a Pay Now in Singapore, they have largely been modeled on UPI. The interesting thing, they are not zero cost yet, right? While we have a zero MDR structure. And to be really accurate, there is cost in the UPI system today, which is borne by the bank. So it is not zero cost for everybody, but it's zero cost for the user and the merchant, right? To be really accurate. And that cost by the banks, there is also a subsidy which the government helps in, so that the banks are able to absorb that and invest in the infrastructure and so on. That's how it works. But the closest parallels are Pix and Pay Now. And there are more examples of more countries wanting to do that. Like I mentioned, more reserve banks across the world reaching out to our RBI saying that, okay, can you support us in facilitating some of this? Between India and Singapore, there is a arrangement where we could use UPI in Singapore with certain conditions, etc. So I think more and more of that will continue to happen.
Fantastic. And you've also mentioned that, in one of your earlier posts and podcasts as well, that, credit card numbers are declining, when you look at UPI transactions coming in, right, becoming much more powerful. Is this a segment that you're seeing only in India, or do you think this is going to change across the globe? I say this because anyways in India, as against, credit card penetration was not very high from the beginning. It has increased over the years, but UPI has been a game changer altogether. Are we going to see this kind of impact globally as well?
So it's an interesting question, and I'll slice it in multiple parts, right? So even if you look at India, while absolute credit card volumes and spends have been growing, the share has been declined, right? Because the payment transactions share has been going on the UPI side. So that is what has happened. But the beauty of the Indian market is that because the overall pie has been expanding, so even the credit card volumes and value have continued to grow, right? That's one sense. It's amazing the market that we live in, right? Like where there is growth for every possible instrument and segment and so on. So my belief is that credit cards will be there, right? Because they provide a certain set of advantages, rewards, etc., which are relevant for a certain customer segment. So it's not going to go away, especially if you see a slew of co-brand credit cards that are coming, where it more ties to user behavior, right? So let's say if you're a more travel person, a travel credit card can benefit you more. If let's say I'm a more dining person, a dining related credit card could benefit me more, etc., etc. So those pockets will be there.
So rewards and loyalty linked to each kind of credit card would really be helpful.
Exactly, right? So those things are there, plus the add-on benefits, lounge access, etc., etc. So there is value. There is value, and it will continue to be there. Now I think globally, it's interesting, right? Like because so if you look at a market like the US, historically been a credit card driven market, continues to be so. Right, largely a credit card driven market because that's the way the systems have evolved. And if you look at how players like Apple Pay have embraced it now with NFC, you can just tap your phone and pay with your credit card, which is embedded in the phone. Right? So those markets are adopting to that. So now, having said that, the need for instant, real-time, low-cost payments is very real, right? So everywhere, people are trying to figure out how do I make that happen while credit card systems are there, right? So which is why you have options like Zelle and so on coming. You have a lot of wallet players, coming in, etc. Who say that, okay, hey, if you have my XYZ wallet, I also have an XYZ wallet. That is instantaneous. So maybe why don't you start with that? Right. So those things will evolve. But I think my honest sense is because today financial systems are siloed. Right? So no individual country's system really talks to another country's system or is interoperable. That's going to be a journey before we get there. So until that time, each country will figure out what's best for itself. Right. So if you look at a country like Brazil, they figured that, hey, Pix works. Right, and if you look at their the market share which Pix has been gaining, it's been increasing continuously. If you look at different markets, again, some more evolved markets like Australia, a pay later option like Afterpay has worked, right? Like, so I think every market will figure itself out based on what the customer segment wants. Some customer segments by default are more credit centric. Right. So one of the reasons why in US the credit cards were always high is because they are a credit. You can say the affinity for credit is very high. Right. Right. So, but it's not so in other markets and so on. So I think this thing will happen where every market will figure itself out. We have a lot to also evolve to. When I mean that, I mean how we evolve in credit. Right, like while we have evolved in instant payments and we have reached a certain stage, how do we evolve in terms of credit? To make it real seamless, paperless journeys. How do you make it more effective? Because even today, the credit penetration in India is very less. True. Right, whereas the need for credit is very high. Right, and that's a real problem that I think and that's a real thing that we will take possibly another decade to solve before we say, okay, we have addressed it to a reasonable extent. And that's really what I feel that, like every market will figure itself out, based on customer needs, and that's truly how it will evolve.
No, that's fantastic, right? In fact, I've started to see this change a little bit on the insurance side over the last 2-3 years, where now you have computer vision based solutions where, if you have to claim against theft, for example, while you claim, then it becomes as easy as recording a 2 minutes video describing the whole situation. And the video using retina scanner also is able to assess if you are at 99% accuracy of telling the truth. And if you are telling the truth, hypothetically, I am at the airport and I left my bag on the chair next to me and someone flicked that. And I'm just narrating this whole incident out, and the software, the AI algo is able to suggest at a 99% accuracy that Abhay Tandon was telling the truth. Then the claim is processed, and in 15 minutes it hits your account, or 1 hour it hits your account, or something like that, which is very, very fast, paperless, etc. So I think this is going to pick up, but I think the fundamental problem that at least I am aware of, and you are the experts, you can guide us as well, is that our financial files at large in the country is very thin, right, on individuals. Which is where at one point in time, China also has been having the same issue. And they have spoken about a social rating mechanism, right, where people around me will rate Abhay Tandon for the integrity that I may have on various parameters, of course, which will mean that, then someone can loan me money or not, right? My lending profile, my financial profile will increase accordingly with those data points. Is that something that you're seeing in India as well?
Yeah, it's very interesting you brought up. In fact, 2 things related to that, right? First, to your point in terms of almost instant claims processing on insurance. Exactly. That's a North Star, right? And that's what, people are looking to get to. There are a lot of AI tools that are also helping people in trying to get there. So that's a very important use case that you mentioned, right? So that's very true. The point about social scoring and so on, right? Ultimately, what does it come down to? It comes down to alternate ways of assessing my credit. Right? Like, so, and that is also a journey that people have started embarking on. Today, if you look at the parameters on which one is assessed as an individual, it could be for a simple loan, unsecured, secured, whatever. The number of parameters have enlarged, right? Why? Because banks, NBFCs have realized that with these alternate parameters, I can credit decision faster. If I can credit decision faster, I can give the loan to you faster.
Right.
So it enables the flywheel. So you get the credit faster, and when I say you, it could be an individual, it could be an enterprise, it could be anything, right? So then when the flywheel happens, then the virtuous cycle really plays itself out. So it's very important, right? And interestingly, I think one of the startups that I mentored and invested in a few years back, his name is Vizzy. They got sold to M2P. They started this thing of how do I help banks with building alternate parameters for credit decisioning. Right, which is very important, and they saw the need for that in the market, and they've been really helping banks, and banks have also moved quite a bit on the journey, right? If you look at banks, and especially if you look at the new age fintech slash NBFCs, right? Like the ones who are trying to lend faster, they have adopted this even more, right? Because if you're looking at digital journeys, you need that many more data points, right? And which means that, does it mean scraping your publicly available LinkedIn profile? Possibly. Scraping a publicly available Insta profile? Possibly, right? Because you get hooks, or even very simple, right? Like things that are there on the mobile phone. I've known fintechs tell me that the number of apps and what apps are there on a person's phone tells a lot about the person's credit behavior.
Oh wow!
Right? Like so, let's say if there are a lot of gaming apps, etc., that means a certain thing. If there are a lot of let's say gambling apps, it means certain thing, etc., right? Like so, so I think we are evolving there in that journey in terms of these alternate ways to score people.
Fantastic. That's so amazing to hear.
Yeah.
In fact, you spoke about a couple of investments that you have made, right? I also wanted to get deeper into this aspect, right, of you as an investor, right? We have actually co-invested in one particular startup as well that I'm aware of, maybe more. Yes, more as well, right? So the syndication model too.
Yes.
But could you talk to us a little bit about on what basis, on what parameters do you decide to invest in particular kind of founders?
And again, I'm really preaching to the choir here. I think you're really the experts. I've just picked up some of the basics. I just try to follow the basics and see what
Chief,
works.
Very humble.
So to me, the basics are essentially first clearly the market opportunity, right? Like that underscores everything else. You can have phenomenal everything, but if the market has a certain cap, or even I would define it by saying if your addressable market has a certain cap to it, there is only so far you can grow, right? So that is the first thing. The second is really in terms of what the USP is, right? Like what people bring to the table. What is the unique way through which they are solving a problem, or they're trying to address the customer need, right? Again, I really wear the hat of the customer, because that's very important, right? Like so ultimately the business has to be built customer backward. There is just no other short way to build a sustainable business. Right? Yes, any other way you can have maybe short-term success, but if you really want long-term success, I think the customer hat is super important. And third, definitely it comes down to some of the key things about the founder and the founding team, right? The experience, the expertise, what is the hunger level, right? The integrity, right? Like what are those things that they bring to bear, right? Like why are they doing this, right? Like what is really something that they are passionate about, right? Like I think these three things, if I were to say, the market opportunity, the USP of what they're trying to solve, why are they uniquely positioned if they get it right on multiple ways, and thirdly, the founder and the founding team, right? These essentially, I call it the brilliant basics. It's just that.
I think the subsequent subsets that you've spoken about, that gives a very clear perspective about first principle and second order thinking that you're imbibing in this whole decision matrix, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. One quick question on, I want people, specifically a lot of people who are aspiring, who look up to you and who are aspiring to be leaders in the future as well. What are some key traits that you look for, or that you think that people should develop, right? There are certain inherent traits and there are certain developed traits, right? What are certain traits that you think people should develop to be strong leaders? And I also want you to touch upon intentionality as a concept that you speak about, right? Intentionality of doing specific work, for not just for the sake of doing it, but for meaning, creating value, right? So if you can just talk about these aspects as well.
I think, and I'll talk about the second thing first, which will lead into the first part, because see, ultimately, I look at it like this, right? All of us are here for a certain span of time, right? In the larger scheme of things, if you look at it from a universe cosmos standpoint, it's a speck, or even smaller than that, right? Which is why I love going with my son to planetarium, because it brings that awe in me to say that, yes, we are just this
Yeah.
in the overall scheme of things. So at least let's make it valuable.
Right.
Right. Like, so from that vantage point, so if that is what it is, and you're expending your life's energy and time and so on, might as well do it in something which one finds meaningful, right? Which one finds value in, and where one finds there is a certain amount of impact which comes into it, right? Because it is not just a trade-off of hours versus money. That's at a very, very basic level. But if you go right to the other end of the spectrum, it's like I'm investing my life's time and energy into something, right? Like, so and that is that has value in many ways, right? So I have a choice. What do I invest my time and energy into, right? And that's and for that, I think people have to stay real to what really drives them.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right? Because there will always be noise around things that they say, but they have to be true to what really ticks for them, which is why I believe in this N equal to 1. You have to find what resonates with you. Right? It could be a passion. It could be something that one is good at, which you want to do more. It could be something that has always motivated you that you want to continue doing. I think one needs to figure it out for oneself. To me, I think it has been a combination of a few things. One is that the impact that fintech can create, like say technology and financial services coming together, what it can create for millions and millions of people. I think that has been a driving factor. Second is in terms of bringing people together to a common vision and then driving towards that vision, seeing that growth which I spoke about. I think to me it was the intersection of these two things which have always kept me going.
Right.
Right. Like so, and like I said, it takes time to kind of figure it out. Right. The only thing is one needs to be authentic to oneself. Right. Saying that, hey, this is what my thing is, right? And when you get to that, stick to it.
Right.
Stick to it, right? Like they would, because when you stick to it, everything else will follow naturally. Like whether it is money, fame, everything else will follow as a consequence, not as an intention. Your intention should be, okay, how am I investing my life's work in something which I find meaningful and fun, right? Like ultimately, it's important to enjoy. Also one is doing. It might not be possible 100% of the time, but as much as possible, right? Like I think these things are important, and that's what I would, when people come to me and ask, okay, how do I figure things out? I say, just go back to what has been the things that have led to some of these haha moments in your life, right? Like which have been the moments where you've really been at your best, like where really you felt those goosebumps, right? There'll be few and far between, but it's important to pay attention to them. Right, and then see, okay, how can I do more of that, right? Like so then the answers will come, right? And I've really found that has worked for me, and I just wanted to share it.
No, thank you so much for that. Right, in fact, underlying statement. Your life's energy should result in meaningful outcomes.
Yes.
And value creation.
Yes.
I think that's what you're trying to say, and that's a beautiful advice for a lot of people who are going to be listening to this, right? Because we sometimes do not take our own lives very seriously. Yeah. Right. Or the limitation of our lives as well, in that sense of it. That we should factor in every energy moment that we are trying to spend towards actually creating those meaningful outcomes and value creation.
Yeah. And want to add on one thing, right? The thing is, when one is doing that, it doesn't have to be serious stuff.
Right.
Like, when you're genuinely enjoying something that you're doing, when you're bringing people together, and it is actually those small things which actually make up a big, large life, right? It's not those big things I found. It's those, it's this everyday small things, those interactions, those conversations, those things, when you're learning something from people, when you're adding something to people. And I think there, one important trait again, which I would say is the importance of being curious.
Right.
Right? Like when you're curious, then you're naturally open to learn. And in that learning, if you can find joy, then I think it really sustains. Okay, so I think, and that's a very important factor, because it's not this, hey, I have to change the world serious stuff. No, like you can change the world in your own way, right? Because you are unique. Right, and you bring a set of things to the world which nobody else can bring, because nobody else has had the history of experiences that you've had. Right, like it is truly unique, and it not just. It's truly unique. There is no other combination of DNA that has shaped you.
Exactly.
Right. So when you appreciate the uniqueness and you truly believe in your self-worth, right? And you feel that, okay, by being me, I can add something to the world,
Very true.
then I think magic happens.
Beautiful. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful and profound. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
There's a couple of quick more questions. What what are some of the key people alive or dead? If you had an opportunity to have dinner with them, who would you like to meet?
So I've respected a lot of leaders over a period of time. In fact, once I've had the opportunity to receive an award and have dinner with Sri Ratan Tata. It was a very, very, very memorable evening in my life. So if I were to recreate, I would love to recreate a dinner conversation with him. But I've respected a lot of founders, a lot of CEOs. I mean, if I were to take names, let's say right from Kunal Shah to Mukesh Bansal, to a lot of CEOs whom I have a deep respect for, the Tata Group Chairman Chandrasekharan, to some of the world's leaders. I mean, right from Bezos to a lot of the leaders, Satya of Microsoft. I think I've definitely listened and learned, and with some of the ones I've got an opportunity to interact as well. So there's been a lot of learning throughout the world. I can name a lot of people, but these are just top of mind, which came to my mind now. Yeah,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any podcast or book that inspired you and that you would like to suggest to the audience as well too?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is a book which is really, really changed and improvised how I look at things. It's a book called The Joy of Compounding by Gautam Bade. Amazing, right? Just the philosophy of compounding. While I had known it, I think the book helped me really go deep in terms of saying how compounding works in every aspect of our life. Right? It could be in terms of health, fitness, work, relationships, money, success. In everywhere, compounding plays a role, right? And which is where this concept of daily compounding, your daily habits, the small things that add up, right? But were truly insightful for me, and I would definitely recommend. It's not just a book in terms of financial wealth creation and so on. It's a lot more holistic. So I would definitely recommend that.
Fantastic.
I'm a great believer. In fact, that's what my WhatsApp status also says: creating and compounding. Because I genuinely believe all of us are creators. We create our lives. We create how things happen. We intend, and when we believe, things happen, and we compound. Right? Whether we do it consciously or unconsciously is a different matter, but everything compounds. So I'm a big believer in these two words.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Vijay, what recharges you daily? What is that one thing which helps you bring that life energy back strong on a daily morning?
Got it. Morning. So one definitely is meditation. Like I mentioned, that's my daily recharge that happens. Apart from that, I find it's very important to pay attention to holistic wellness, right? Like, so almost all the days I have a certain kind of physical fitness routine as well. It could be either hitting a CrossFit studio near my house or doing yoga, whatever, or running. Kind of try to mix it up, something which kind of gets my juices flowing. I find that it's a great way to just take one's mind off from everything else and do something which also, and I think it also virtuous cycle. I think because I really feel that everything is correlated, whether it's body, mind, and soul. However, you look at it, everything adds to everything else in a virtuous cycle, right? Like, so my physical fitness enhances my meditation, which in turn enhances, my intellectual capability, and so on. And it's kind of all three are interrelated. Lot of people, lot of experts are out there. This is just basics that I have picked up. I've realized that it works for me, but that is something which really works. And then what also I find, from a very different lens, also been a classical singer for many years now, and I've been learning under a master. So a few times in a week, I take those classes, I practice. That kind of helps me go into a very different territory in terms of music. Either I'm practicing or I'm singing.
Fantastic.
So that leads me in a different zone altogether.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So
that's
these are the things.
One last question, Vijay. Thank you so much for sharing this far.
Sure.
The last question for you would be, what is the future of financial services, of fintech at large, 5 years from now? Any one thing that you think is going to be really different from what we are seeing today?
Yeah, I think we are going to have financial experiences tailor made to one's requirements at the tip of our fingers
Wow.
in every possible way. Every possible way. Right? I really mean that. Whether it is in investing, whether it is in terms of insuring ourselves, whether it is lending, whether it is trading, anything, right? In every possible way, it's going to be at the tip of a fingertip. In fact, it might not even need your fingers. You could talk.
Right.
You
Makes
could
sense.
talk, and it could happen through just conversational AI. And because I really see so many things that are coming together to make those experiences happen, right? And definitely generative AI is leading the way in that. A lot of things are to be figured out, but I'm sure we as a race we will figure it out, right? So if you were to take a 5 to 10 year horizon, I think we'll get to a place where we will get the experience that we want from the provider we want, at the time we want, at the place we want, at the cost that we want. All of that will
Right.
come together. Yeah.
Wow. That's not going to be a super personalized or hyper personalized. I don't know, there's going to be a new term for that, but it'll be hyper personalized or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing this. We talk about a lot of these terms that laymen don't understand, and you have explained a lot of these concepts so beautifully to us. Can you also help us understand, if you had to explain the concept of UPI to a 5-year-old, how would you do that?
Okay, that's interesting. My son is around that age, so let me try to see if I would explain it to him how I would do that.
Sure.
Okay, so his name is Satvik, and then let's say he has another friend same age called Navya. Let's say you imagine they're playing shop and shop, right? So they're doing a mock game of one person buying and the other person selling. So let's say in this case, Navya is having a shop which sells bananas, right? Like a toy bananas.
Right.
Satvik comes there, he's trying to buy that banana and he wants to pay her.
Right.
So let's say he buys a couple of bananas for $10. Then all Satvik has to do, there's this magic called UPI where he just has to say, hey UPI, transfer 10 rupees from Satvik's piggy bank to Navya's piggy bank.
Brilliant.
And then it happens,
Right.
right? That's essentially what UPI does.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much for sharing that. Again, very, very crisp and very effective for people to understand what really happens. Thank you so much, Vijay. The responses have been so articulate, so fantastic, and it's so candid. Plus the humility that you've brought in, right?
Thank you.
So I think
Yeah.
people are going to just love this conversation. And I, on that note, wanted to give you this. This
So
is
sweet.
a
Thank you so much.
hamper by Cupic Design.
Thank you.
Which is into personalized corporate gifting. So they have sponsored this. So thank you so much for coming here,
Yeah.
and sharing these perspectives.
Thanks, Abhay. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think brilliant the way you weaved it in. I think you made it flow so seamlessly. Thank you so much. Continue to look forward to many such conversations with you. Right,
Likewise.
and good luck for this podcast to go to higher and higher levels. I think you've been doing an amazing job bringing a lot of different people from different walks of life together. So best wishes on that as well.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
can't wait for getting this episode out. I think the audience is going to love this. It's been a super amazing conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of learnings for me, and I'm sure a lot of learnings for them as well. So till then, signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank
Vijay.
you, Abhay. Thank you so much.
Feel free to share your perspectives through comments, subscribe to the channel, and do send us some suggestions as well. Thank you.